I think we should move on to our very first, or this would be our inaugural Badass of the Year awards.
Woo woo! It's an
We
interesting
started
debate
our
here.
we started our Badass of the Week this year, which I think that was unmitigated success. We got to talk about performances throughout the weeks of players on all five of our
We
teams.
got to talk about Lewis Robert
We
every
talked about
week.
Lewis Robert a lot. We talked about Cody Bellinger a lot. When we do this every week, it kind of gives you a pulse for, clearly who's having a great season. But it gave us time to promote, players that were having a great week, or players that you wouldn't necessarily think about as being the best on a team. But for 1 week, if somebody puts up big numbers, that we were able to give recognition to those guys. So I thought it was fun. You and I had a blast talking about it. We pretty much nominate everybody from all five of our teams, except for the A's only had a few nominations, but we didn't have too many disagreements every week, like determining who is that, because who gives a fuck? I'm not going to argue forever about who the ultimate badass that week was. We'll get over it, but led to some fun conversations, at least how you compare numbers and how you evaluate things, and maybe take away your home team biases potentially. But I put together a list of my nominations. You sent yours to me a couple weeks ago, and you tried to shoot down some of my ideas before they could even get on the air. But I love that. But you can shoot me down now that I added them to the list. If you can read off maybe from the bottom.
Yeah,
You want to start with pitchers or batters? I don't know. Where you want to
start off offensive.
We'll start offensively.
All right, we got a guy I was in agreement with you, like, fuckers, shut up. He's going to be good. Spencer Torkelson.
Mainly give him time.
Yeah,
that's what I didn't like about the.
It's the same thing with White Sox fans.
Twitter.
It's like give the fucking player time. You don't even realize he may have been on the team for like 2 fucking years, but look at the amount of at-bats he's officially had and shit.
That's another example to realize every fan base is the same, especially on social media. They're all jump the gun. They all say stupid shit constantly. It's not that there is no smarter fan base than another fan base. It's all silly.
I'll give you the best example. Last year, end of the season, trade Jake Burger. This year, Jake Burger gets traded. Worst trade in White Sox history. Make up your mind, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
I said it last year. I'm saying it with Andrew Vaughn. When Andrew Vaughn hits fucking 38 home runs this upcoming season, don't say I didn't tell you so.
It's interesting because I think we talked about this before. Andrew Vaughn and Spencer Torkelson are actually trained together. I think.
Yeah,
they went to school together. They remind me of each other. Like, I think of Torkelson as a year or two younger than Vaughn, so their careers kind of parallel in ways. And
the only good news about Torkelson, he's never been asked to play out of position. So.
Yeah, well, he finally put the offensive numbers. Like the whole first half of the season, he was amongst the leaders in hard hit ball rate, exit velocity, all those, and had nothing to show for it. It was just victim of circumstances to the nth degree, and he never lost his confidence. To his credit, he just kept doing what he was doing. He was just trusting the process, and that fucking paid off.
Yeah,
with 31 home runs.
Yep.
How many?
88 runs, 94 ribbies, which
whatever. This
RBIs is whatever.
We've been comparing those stats for every week, so I thought I'd throw in the same
3
stats.
stolen bases, 758 OPS.
Yeah, the OPS is not where you want it to be for sure, but the power numbers he led the Tigers in every offensive category.
Yeah. So. And I will say his offensive WAR, I looked up specifically offensive WAR. We're not going to look up defensive WAR because we're not talking about defense here. If we did, Lewis Robert runs away with this category, but 1.4
anyway. But
1.4 is his offensive WAR.
Yeah, see, that's confusing. His defensive WAR is like negative, probably, because
his overall WAR is 0.8.
It's weird because I watch him every day, and he saves so many errors from Javi Baez, from bad throws to first.
What?
He sucks up everything at first base.
Javi Baez? Bad throw?
Exactly. So I don't understand how those metrics play out. Like I literally I think there's some work. I think a lot of people talk about that. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on defensive metrics. I don't think of him as a bad defensive first baseman. So I'm missing something. Clearly I don't know how those work. Maybe he doesn't get to balls that he should. Maybe he doesn't make the tough play down the line that he should. I just the obvious ones to amateurs like you and me are what the picks he makes at first, and he consistently makes up for bad throws from Baez and others. And I've been impressed with his defense. So that's what I also didn't include WAR in these because literally this conversation could just boil down to who had the best WAR, and I think it'd be really boring if we just make it a WAR contest. That's it's not even a discussion then. It's like whoever has the best WAR wins. I think that's probably how it mostly works out, but I think it's fun to talk about the other stats at least. So, but I didn't think Torkelson should be our badass of the year, but I wanted to at least nominate him and put him in my top 3.
Next is Cody Bellinger, 26 homers, all before the key stretch, mostly.
Yeah.
95 runs, 97 ribbies, 20 stolen bases. I was kind of surprised by that.
That's a hell of a year. 26 runs.
Yeah. And 881 OPS. I mean,
yeah, that's a hell of a year. It's unfortunate that he wasn't keeping that same pace in the last month, but can't complain about that. No one's gonna say that was a bad signing for 1 year.
No, he had two bad months. He had I think
got hurt. Was part of it,
going into getting hurt in July or whatever it was, or June. He had this horrendous numbers, and then he got hurt, but he came back strong. He came back with insane numbers again, like he had in April and May, and then had a tail off again. So,
not as insane numbers as your White Sox Luis Robert Jr. Sorry for almost
too shy of the 40-20 club.
I think adding the junior is what put him over the top this year.
I think 38 home runs.
Yeah.
90 runs, 80 RBIs, 20 ribbies, 857 OPS. He edges out Bellinger.
20 steals? Is that?
Yeah, 20 steals. He edges out Bellinger. It's funny, if you just look offensive WAR, he edges out Bellinger 4.4 to 4.2. That's how close it is.
12 more home runs, and his OPS is better. So I don't.
No, his OPS is worse than Bellinger.
Oh, is it worse? Okay.
Yeah, so Bellinger had more extra base hits, obviously.
Okay, that makes sense.
So this is the major debate, which I always struggle with. And I even hate to bring this up, but
oh God,
because I'm tipping towards Bellinger, but Bellinger's numbers were done in the midst of a playoff hunt.
Oh, so you're talking about, it's almost like the MVP debate, like the most valuable player. Can a player be valuable if they don't make the playoffs, or if they're not in a playoff
Luis
run?
Robert
was useless because his team was terrible.
Because his team was useless.
Not his fault. That's why his RBI numbers are so low.
That's why his RBI numbers are 80.
Nobody's on base.
No one's on base ahead of him. But does that discredit Robert a little bit or does it not? Because Bellinger, you've admitted, and we've talked about, he didn't really produce down the stretch when it was needed the most. So,
well, that kind of mitigates it there. But we're talking about a badass here. Who is the biggest badass? I kind of know.
Luis Robert's the biggest badass,
and that's why that's what kind of bothers me about the MVP debate. Just those words, valuable. That's always, it makes that debate interesting, but I don't want to be interesting. I want to find out who the biggest badass from our 5 teams is.
I mean, let's talk about some of the fucking home runs this dude hit.
Yeah,
I mean they were fucking massive.
He was a fucking badass. I think it's not even a question.
All right,
even the year that Bellinger had, or that Torque had, even hitting 31 home runs.
I'm going to turn my head around finally.
Yeah, I mean,
Luis Robert is our badass of the year.
I'm not. I mean, as much as I was throwing a pity party for you earlier. I don't want you to be sad. There's no disingenuousness, if that's a word, about this. Like
I mean, we've
Luis
talked about
Robert,
several times that he would have been the AL MVP if it wasn't for Shohei Ohtani,
I
right?
think he would be. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that he would be. It would be pretty simple, but Otani's a mutant, and
Yeah.
even with him being hurt for the last month, essentially,
Yeah.
he's gonna take it. It's unreal. He ended up with 44 home runs and he didn't even play for the last month, pretty much.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah. All right.
Oh,
So
pitchers. We didn't do this during the season. We just had one. We kind of combined pitchers and batters.
yeah.
Ran away with it.
That's right. This is good.
It's hard. It's hard for pitchers when we do it once a week because maybe they'll get 2 starts. And at one point, I forget who it was now. Was it somebody had close to a no hitter, but we wouldn't give it to him? Forget. Damn it, I forgot what it is now. But
was it Stroman?
Well, we did give Stroman a badass of the week once because it must have been a slow offensive week for everybody. But
it was someone I made the joke. I'm like, well, he couldn't complete the no hitter, so is he really a badass? That was I don't know who that was.
Yeah, you'll rue the day you said those words.
Yes. And I know I'm going to retract my text I sent to you because when you started extrapolating or doing math on the numbers, there's a legit reason to consider Skubal for badass of the year.
I just wanted to be considered. He only had 15 starts. Everyone else has over 30, I think.
Guys, folks, we have to look at the innings and the Ks. And if you look at the innings and the fucking Ks, and you look, and this was a Tigers problem that we talked about as I don't know why, continually supportive of the Tigers throughout this podcast this season.
Yeah, what's going on?
That if they had a healthy pitching staff, what would they really have been this season in the AL Central? And I know I'm starting the middle of the list.
Well, it informs the bottom of my list.
Let me just start at the bottom of the list.
Clevinger.
Great.
Skubal almost has as many strikeouts and half as many innings, I think. I mean,
yeah, that's going to be my point of this whole list.
And a run better. ERA.
Clevinger, 3.77 ERA, very respectable. Yeah. I think actually his numbers are good enough to where I think if the Sox truly want to compete next year, they should take his option. I don't care about whatever.
They don't have a rotation at this point.
Like everyone on White Sox Twitter is like not putting him in the math.
They've already dealt with the baggage. It's not like unless he does something else stupid this.
And I never mentioned this. The very last White Sox game I went to, there was a woman wearing a Clevinger jersey.
Whoa!
I know.
Wow.
I forgot to talk. This shit Pete forgot.
You should have taken a picture of that.
I know. I felt awkward. Like I always feel awkward about taking pictures of people, but
do it. You're a journalist, God damn it.
Clevinger, 3.77 ERA, super respectable. 110 Ks, not that great for the 131 innings pitch and a 1.226 whip.
He was respectable. Those numbers are much better than I realized. Like he's your best pitcher by far, which is
by far the White Sox best pitcher. Erod dealt with injury. 3.30 ERA, obviously on this podcast, arguably the best pitcher in the first 2.5 months of the season. 143 Ks, 152 innings pitched, 1.153 whip. Now I'm going off this list in Smitty's order, which I think
you can disagree with, but
I think his order is somewhat correct. I would switch 1 and 2, but whatever.
Okay. This is fun.
But I might. There's an argument for 3 to be number 1, and here's why.
Wow.
Tarik Skubal, 2.8 ERA. He had 102 Ks, motherfuckers, in 80.1 innings. Now, let me do the math for you.
Wow.
I'm going to talk about the K leader on this list, which is Logan Webb.
Yeah.
He pitched 216 innings and had 194 Ks. If you're looking at the pace of Skubal here, that's 204 Ks in 160 innings. That is less innings than Justin Steele, than Logan Webb, who are in Smitty's 1 and 2 spots. for Ks. And then his whip is
Below
not
1.
below 1. It's below
9.
0.9. It's 0.896.
There's a reason why he was the AL pitcher of the month for September, and he certainly did not have a bad August.
And you can say, oh, the Tigers were out of it in September, which is the argument I was making. Like maybe you say Lou Robb versus Bellinger, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't want this is badass.
But at the same time, there were teams the Tigers were playing who were fighting for their fucking playoff lives. And Skubal took care of business. So at number 3, he may very well be. Granted, it's a small sample size.
Smaller. It's a half a season.
Smaller, yeah, half season sample size.
It's not a month. It's not 2 months. It's half a season.
He pitched, but in half a season, he actually pitched only 50 less innings than Clevinger.
That's a whole.
Who's considered a full season. Yeah. So, and only 72 innings less than Erod, who is also considered a full season. So
this is why badass of the year is an interesting conversation, because you can base it off anything. Is that the most, maybe it's badass of the half of the year, but
yeah,
you could argue that. But I think it's got to be the year. I just wanted him to be included.
I dismissed it immediately, but
now you're a bigger proponent of him than I was. So
well, I've always liked Skubal's like pitching abilities, and he's kind of like dealt it to the White Sox, so that's why I respect it too.
Fired up. We're in the D.
All right, so let's move to Logan Webb, who I believe should be number 1 on this list, because
I came close. I came close to putting him number 1.
3.25 ERA, 194 Ks. He pitched 216 innings.
That's huge.
That's what you want for a fucking starter.
That's huge. Yes.
And
absolutely.
over 216 innings, which is 20 or 33 more than Smitty's number 1 on the list. His ERA is almost a point lower than his, with a 1.074 whip. A whip is almost
the whip is lower. Yeah. ERA is not.
So total consideration for Bass of the year. Then you have Justin Steele, who came out of nowhere.
Cubs. Out of nowhere, but he's been a Cy Young candidate all season. So
no, I meant out of nowhere in this season to start the season. Like it was like, he was a Cubs farm system bring up, brought up.
Cubs fans knew who he was. Maybe the general.
Yeah, I did not know.
Yep, that's fine.
Who's this fucker?
You didn't need to know.
Justin Steele, 3.06 ERA, grossly inflated when it counted the most in the second half of the
thing.
Season.
He had 2 or 3 terrible starts near the end, and that blew it up. He was below 3 for most of the season.
176 Ks, 173.1 innings pitched, and a 1.17 whip. I mean,
I could see the argument for Webb.
Right now, I'm teetering on the point of Webb and Skubal.
Wow, you put Steele number 3.
I put Steele number 3, especially because I kept looking at his numbers when we would get on for the second half and argue with you, because his ERA in the second half was nearly a 5. I mean, it was atrocious. Well, that
shows you what he did previously.
Yeah,
306 or 302 or 306. Yeah, I got now that we've been drinking Truth Serum alcohol throughout this. I'll tell you, I was gonna give you Louis Robert. I couldn't give you both because you're gonna have Webb as well. I wanted to make an argument for Steele, but you articulated your Webb argument quite well. So I can change my rankings certainly to Webb for the best amongst the pitchers.
Here's my final rankings.
I love your Skubal argument.
Here's my final rankings. Webb, Skubal.
Wow.
I would have won this hands down, a full year pitching.
Steele,
Erod, and then obviously Clevinger for a token name from the White Sox. But
I think we're both magnanimous in this final decision.
And I won something this year. I may have not won the rating.
I didn't want to give it to you, but
I won
you
both
got
badasses of the year. Yeah.
Word Hole Media.